Well, good morning, everyone. Is the loudspeaker thing working? Can you all hear me? Oh, good. Welcome to the conference, and I'm the warm-up act, and what I've got to do is effectively give you just a very brief outline of where Mill Road sits in the broader history of Cambridge. So it's going to be 8 minutes of 8 outrageous generalisations. So off we go. This is the area we're looking at. The Mill Road is going straight down the middle of the slide there. You can see Parker's Piece in the bottom right, Fenner's behind it, then the railway. And I've called this a theatre of suburbs because, of course, Cambridge, over the years, has developed tremendously. And if we go back to the 1800s, the very early 1800s, there wasn't really anything you could call suburban Cambridge. The nearest you get is Castle Hill, which is essentially rather odd because, of course, this was the original centre of Cambridge. But ever since the Dark Ages, it had effectively just been an appendage. And also, the only other suburb, really, was what we know as King Street, but which is marked on the map as Walls Lane. And Vernon Brodell, an economic historian, writing 50 years ago, back in 1973, made this point about the pre-1800 suburb, that to reach the suburbs was always to take a step downwards. Anybody who was anybody lived in the town centre. And so in the suburbs, you get all sorts of things going on that people don't want in town centres. You get the noisome trades, and you get slaughterhouses, you get tanneries, you get breweries and things like this. And this was certainly the case in King Street, which you can see here, and also, as I mentioned, Castle Hill. Castle Hill here mapped by Richard Rowe in 1858, gives some indication of what this was like. A mixture of sort of courtyards, alleyways, etc. Very much a rundown slum. Very much they also ran in Cambridge. In the early 19th century, it all changes. Suddenly, the suburbs become respectable. And we can see this very clearly in Cambridge from about 1820 onwards. Once the open fields have been enclosed, once the town can start to grow outwards, then the middle classes do start to move out of the town centre. And partly for health reasons as much as anything else, town centres are grossly overcrowded, they're grossly insanitary, you want somewhere rather better. And so what you're getting is, for the first time, the suburbs becoming desirable. Starts in Newmarket Road, and, of course, continues apace thereafter. Now, there isn't time to go through this map in detail. It's one that Peter Bryan did 20-odd years ago. But it does give some indication. When you look at the little black bits in the middle there, that is pre-1800 Cambridge. And it's grown tremendously. The darker red is the 19th century developments, and the pink is interwar developments, and yet further developments, of course, in the late 20th century and into the 21st. The difference with the 20th century suburbs is that here you do have a mixture of housing. You get council housing and private housing, and particularly, of course, in areas like Arbury, you do get a major concentration of council estates. Well, we're concerned, of course, with East Cambridge, Darnwell, which was the sort of blanket term applied to the area in the Victorian period. Originally a small village, perhaps population of 200, on the Newmarket Road, and here it is mapped in 1830. You've got Newmarket Road, Sun Street as it was called then, running east to west across the map, and you've got the new East Road laid out at the time of enclosure coming down to the bottom left-hand corner. And as you can see, it's a very piecemeal development. This is one of the strange things about Cambridge. It doesn't grow out sort of incrementally. Bits and bobs all over the place, which only gradually becomes fully built up. And it's a suburb of contrasts. You do get immense variations in lifestyles, standards of living, what people are doing. This is Bradmore Street, which was, I suppose, just about on the fringe of respectability. When you get round the corner into Bradmore Lane, you're definitely out of the fringes of respectability. The 1851 census has got at least 2 women who put their occupation down quite honestly as prostitutes in Barnwell Lane. This is in Bradmore Lane. This is just before it was demolished to make room for the expansion of Anglia Ruskin University. And contrast that with only 5 minutes walk away, Harvey Road. Here you're getting these very, very big houses, obviously built for people who can employ servants, and Harvey Road in particular, very much an academic stronghold. Everyone living here in the early 20th century was an academic of one sort or another. And all of this is being built on the land belonging to Gonville and Caius College, what it called its Barnwell Estate. And again, there isn't time to go into this in any detail, but it's a very complex building development pattern here over the years, about 20 years or so. And it is, today, of course, it's an visual encyclopedia of Victorian architecture. You get every sort of conceivable variety you can think of. So on the left-hand side, all of these are in Linwood Road, and you get these sort of Dutch gables, which I think is probably a builder who'd seen Bedford Park and never quite got over it and wants to bring it back to Cambridge. On the right-hand side, you've got, on the far right of the slide, what I suppose you'd call a Gothic villa, although it's being Victorian, it's both Gothic and classical motifs being used on the same building. And just next door to it, and probably about 10 years later, a vernacular revival, Queen Anne style, sweetness and light, whatever you like to call it, all the features of a late 19th century fashionable house, the overhanging roofs, the brackets, etc., the bay windows. And you can see this once again very clearly, where Willis Road becomes Collier Road, where again there is a gap in building development between the 2 roads, with Willis Road being first, and so you move from that very typical Victorian to, once again, the vernacular revival style on the right there. On the other side of Mill Road, away from the Keys property, it's a very different pattern, of course. This map, which is taken from the Historic Towns Trust map of Cambridge, published a couple of years ago, shows very clearly how it's tightly built up with terraced housing, etc., and particularly relevant to today, the blue bits, or sort of blue bits, are industrial premises of one sort or another. So here you're getting this mixture of housing and industry, which is really going to be the theme for today. And then, of course, on top of all of that, you've got the railway. This, of course, is perhaps the dominant feature physically of East Cambridge. This is a famous photograph taken by an American serviceman from Mill Road Bridge in 1943, so we're in the middle of the war. Gives some indication of what the railway was once like. Coal train coming through there behind the Gresley K3, a J69 shunting in the yards, 24 hours a day, constant activity, and of course a major employer. And if you look north, or if you looked north from Mill Road Bridge, again you would have got a very different picture of Cambridge to the tourist board image. So a whole range of industries stretching along from Mill Road to the Coldham's Lane Bridge, iron foundries, petrol depots, timber yards, coprolite works, etc. So one of the questions for today perhaps is, how important was the railway in East Cambridge? How many of the industries that we saw on the HTT map are dependent on the railways? How far are they dependent on the local clientele? And so that's it. We're now going to get down to the details, so enjoy the day, please, and I'll hand you back to Evelyn. And I'll attend to this road.